Hi, welcome. In this video, I want to take a few minutes to talk about the confusion associated with the role of punishment. And again, on the heels again of the controversy you're seeing as part of the International Association of Canine Professionals, it's blowing up right now over the trigger point, the role of punishment. Then what you saw there was in terms of Dylan Jones, which I'm going to talk about in this video here, over his being questioned, okay, by the force-free community over a reaction, okay, from a dog. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to line this up. But again, you're seeing so much just controversy after controversy, and look at all the infighting going on within the balanced dog training community itself. And again, even the president of this association being called out by Dylan Jones, okay, over a video related to the role of a remote collar and all this back and forth. See Sean O'Shea's in the mix. You see, there's so much. There's stuff that I'm even missing. Okay, there's so much. But again, I talk about this controversy, okay, once again, has all the core elements I talk about that is triggering off all these controversies. I talk about, what defines training. Okay, we'll talk about that. What defines a process? We talk about punishment. Okay, you hear these terms trying to define at the social level, trying to define influence and control. Okay, how they're reconciled by way of relationship. Understand this focuses on how everything filters through the relationship, through what this connection at the social level represents. Understand this is the problem here. So understand all the things related to this superficial ideas to what training is. I talk about appearances. I talk about, within the framework of superficial responses, that the problem starts at the beginning, okay, with how these trainers are jumping into a relationship problem without understanding, okay, what defines training to begin with, okay, in terms of relationship, in terms of, again, I talk about defining a process by way of a intentional, okay, interaction based method, okay, that aligns socially, okay, that brings those core ingredients, reconciles them properly, okay, and changes perception of dogs the right way. Dog coming into agreement with the dog, understanding intent. Intent is one of the big words I talk about by way of the right language. Okay. So again, being dialed into the relationship at a deeper level, because that's what it is anyway. This whole thing with these trainers, understand that they're already pivoting off of this superficial idea at the beginning anyway. So when you challenge them, they'll come up with any excuse in their playbook to try to write it off, to try to say, we don't want to look at it. We don't want to step back. We don't want to ask the questions that need to be asked. But, you can do that, but this isn't going to stop. Okay. I understand that these controversies that I keep talking about, are going to keep happening. Things are going to get worse. You're not seeing any sort of resolution or any sort of clarity. And that's what's going on. So here, this video popped up, okay, on my feed. And I want to talk about it. Again, this is something that, again, you see these things popping up, and it's it's no surprise to me. Okay, this whole back and forth, the force-free side trying to call out the other side and all this stuff. So here you have Dylan Jones, where someone posted this 14-second clip, of him, being a trainer. You hear him give an instruction here with what to do with this dog, and this dog is yelping. Okay, this dog is giving a reaction. Okay, and it's just triggered off. This whole word abuse is thrown around, but how I want you to see this, and I'm going to frame this up properly, is similar to again, we talk about the Jeff Gelman, okay, the bonker situation. Okay, how that all triggered off with the dog being startled. Okay, the similar type of reaction. You're going to hear the yelping by way again of the issue about clarity. Okay, I'm going to talk about clarity. I'm going to talk about certain themes here that you need to be aware of. Okay, when you see these things happening. The question is, why are they happening? Like, what's the problem here? Well, I talk about this whole, play based, okay, training, right? This example, I talk about even the whole thing, training without conflict. Well, that's a red flag right there. You're already in conflict. Okay, understand the fact that you're dealing with a relationship problem means you're in conflict with your dog. Okay, things are sideways. The relationship is sideways. Okay, it's a power play already. You see all the behavioral issues manifesting, right? Control is manifesting itself. So you're already in conflict. So to say that, you have a method that keys up on, it plays into this whole, superficial idea of things, right? That without conflict, right? Oh, how great is that? I mean, I can engage in a way that avoids, conflict. But what you're avoiding is reconciling the core ingredients. What you're avoiding is engaging the right way through your role. Okay. Then here you'll see it. And then when you bring, control in, influence in, it's going to create problems. Okay. And you'll see it here. Right. So if it doesn't make sense to the dog, clarity is a big theme here. Is it's like how everything comes together, or reconciled that makes sense to the dog. Okay, understand that's the problem here. It's about how it comes together, how it's reconciled through a intentional interaction based process. But you see here the dog, even as I'm talking here, I'm going to open this clip up bigger. You see this dog coming forward and then cowering down, like the reaction lowering down, right? At the right here, you see the dog starting to lower down. Right there, the dog's already being disagreeable, lack of clarity, right? And then the person continues with introducing or bringing, influence into it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this, but let's just read Dylan's response here because again, he keeps saying, "Well, I'm going to respond. If I'm attacked, I'm going to respond." Well, good luck with that. Okay, this is what I say about the force-free movement taking over. Okay, because to try to bring in your idea of what punishment is or influence is isn't going to align through this process anyway. Okay, so you're going to get attacked. Okay, you're going to get challenged, and why wouldn't you? Okay, that's the problem. These trainers, they just don't want to. They don't want to hear it, right? And so you can keep it up. I mean, for so long, but look at the controversies. Look at this big thing happening with the association. And Dylan Jones should be the last guy trying to call out anybody. Okay, I mean, I want to make that point too. I mean, you talk about people jumping all over that Jeff Gellman situation, balanced dog trainers alike, piling onto it. That should right there, people should have stopped and just asked, like, what is going on? Why do we have not just force free trainers getting all upset over that reaction from the dog and labeling that as abuse? Why do we have these balanced dog trainers, piling onto that situation? I'll tell you why. Okay, because of the confusion, the lack of depth. You know, these balanced, play based trainers are playing both sides of the fence. That's what they're doing, and they're caught in a trap. So here he says, so this is a 14-second clip of my 5-minute long video deliberately presented with the intention of framing me as a dog abuser. Well, pretty easy. Okay, understand because this goes into this whole thing about being able to reconcile, okay, the response or reaction to the relationship. Okay, these trainers, they don't do that, but being dialed into the relationship properly to begin with, so you're not going to have these type of reactions, right? It's about clarity, making sense to the dog. It isn't special because I have people making these edits about me on a daily basis. It's worth mentioning, as I've said a million times, this side is completely and utterly left uncontested. Well, of course, you can't contest that which you're in agreement with. How can you contest? How can these balanced dog trainers, play-based trainers call out the other side when they give them a hall pass to begin with? I mean, just think about why do you think this whole mess is happening with this association? While they belligerently and knowingly lie and frame us as dog abusers. Well, again, it's lack of depth. So yeah, they can label because you get the reaction, you get that yelp. You're going to hear here in a minute the yelping and the craziness, right? Um, while our side is expected to sit on our hands and allow it to happen, not a single balance trainer says a word while we get this done to us. Well, what position do these balanced dog trainers even have in terms of even speaking anyway? They're too busy playing both sides of the fence. So I mean, for them to speak out, I mean, here's the problem. Here you have the association that has invited force-free trainers to come and speak as instructors, as presenters. That's all you need to know right there. Like I could just stop there. But the problem in the dog training community, it's like this is a type of identity crisis. It's like there's so much here to talk about, but it's like nobody wants to get it because they're all turned over to this nonsense. Okay, to this idea. It's all about this pride and ego just out of control. Really, it is. I mean, ego, like pride, is at the root of everything here because you have to have enough humility and be humble enough to say, I'm going to make the trade off. If there's a problem here, I want to know what it is, and it's not about me that way. I want to know what represents training. Like, how does this stuff line up? So he says, "On a single bounce doctrine," he says, "a word while we get this done to us. I'm happy to fire back." Well, good luck. He can't try to fire back. Good luck doing that. So here, um, and so they label this please pay attention, little ones. This is what training without conflict looks like. These are the alpha grades of dog industry. So yeah, the cheap shots, right? I find it's interesting. I don't get any heat at all from cheap shots or anything from the force free side, like zero. It all comes from the balanced dog training community. But I wonder why it is. Maybe perhaps because I'm not, I provide, I have that line. I say it's not a learning based exercise. So, but balanced dog trainers say the training is. So they're at the mercy of this group. I'm not. I mean, I just call it out for what it is. I say this is what training is. So they didn't leave me alone for the most part. It's a joke. So here, let's flip over here. Let's go look at the actual. Let's play some of this. And I want to talk about it.
No! Good. Go to him. Go to him. Good. Good. Give him a pop.
Right here, give him a pop. Right. So this whole thing about, and Dylan said that, like, give him a pop. Right. So this whole disconnected thing happening here. Okay. So, that, when these trainers are using certain tools, it isn't going to line up anyway. So be it whether it's, remote collars, whether it's prong collars, right? Whether it's how they're using the leash, okay? It's going to be disjointed and disconnected. So here you see this dog coming in, and right away this dog,
Cool.
he's saying, cool, listen to the yelping and crazy. So a lot of this thing is this thing about it not making sense to the dog. This dog is being disagreeable. This dog, the mind's pulling in. Right? It's a power play, but it's the wrong type of power play because, it's not making sense. I talk about reconcile. I talk about one of the things about intent. Dog understand clarity for the dog. It's through a approach that brings those core ingredients together in such a way that the dog is going to be agreeable. Okay, you have moments of disagreeableness by way of, again, if you watch my videos, the dog will lock in and not want to move forward. There's a technique for that. Okay, technique is about, I talk about the tug of war team that collapses. It's like bringing the mind to a point of just buckling in agreeableness and moving forward. But it's how influence, okay, aligns in such a way that creates that. It's the right conversation. So the dog understands intent through how you're moving, okay, and how you're engaging. And it's a type of conversation, okay, that the dog comes into agreement with. What's going on here, this is disjointed. It's not a type of conversation that, should be happening through, influence and control being reconciled. Okay. You get into this thing about even using remote collars, because it's got to make sense to the dog. I said, everything comes from a foundation of a proper relationship. Okay. Proper being reconciled through that right conversation, right? Everything flows through that. Everything filters through that. But if it doesn't, if the dog's already saying that, well, this play based or this type of idea doesn't reconcile the core ingredients properly, right? It creates this type of scenario where the dog's saying, hold on here a second, I'm still in control. Sure, you got this collar on me, and the dog will fight through it, but be very disagreeable to it, and it'll bring a higher level of stress on the dog as well. And right here, you see the dog cowering down, as the dog gets near this individual. Back this up. Dog starts to cower down. There's your sign right there. See right there that the dog is saying, I don't like this. This isn't making sense. The reaction such that startled type of, not just startled, but disagreeableness, because it's not lining up. It's like the relationship isn't built on the right foundation to begin with. And you're bringing these core ingredients in, which aren't reconciled properly. And the dog is having this reaction. Right. And then guess what? The other side is like making a big deal about it, right? Because you hear the yelping, you hear the craziness, right? And they're going to say, oh, not giving the dog the choice. right? All those things. You know, you can use treats, you can use all that, and then it's bribery, right? But see, the play on this is the fact that they're introducing, right? It's because these trainers are caught in a trap anyway. I'll say, no, you don't use treats. Okay, you don't bribe the dog. Those core ingredients are reconciled, but the right way, through the right conversation. You watch my videos how I'm doing it. It doesn't look like this at all, right? This is a problem for sure.
Cool. Stop there. Yep. Good. No. Good.
And see the dog dragging.
No. Good. Go to him. Go to him.
So you hear that yelping over there. So I suspect there's a remote collar on this dog, right? And that's the other problem. You know, you build up towards like the remote collar as a pivot point is a problem. Okay, if you're using that within the framework of this type of superficial process to begin with. Okay, it's not gonna align. You get that, so you get that starter reaction from a distance. Obviously, the dog isn't recalling properly to the, but again, it's not about saying, well, we need a proper foundation first. We need to, engage the right way so the dog, there's clarity here first.
Good.
And dog starts right here, and the guy's coming in. The guy shouldn't be moving anyway. And you can build this through using, like I said, certain principles of you watch my videos, a long line, controls expressed, through the long line, right? And, the commands line up through that. You watch my videos to see how I'm lining up the recall, right? But the whole part of the first process is in close and personal with the right conversation. You see me with leashes, very specific interactions, right? That change the perceptions of the dog before I get into distance, any sort of distance stuff going on.
Good. Give him a pop.
Give him a pop. That's crazy. Give him a pop. The dog's already going into lockdown mode here, right? So he's just like, want to give him a pop. That's crazy. Let's tell you, Dylan doesn't know what he like really. Okay, this is crazy stuff going on here.
Cool.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. Not good at all. And he's saying cool. There's nothing cool about this. So, all to say, the dog training world's a mess for a reason. The fact that Dylan has anything to say about this association is a joke. The association's a joke to begin with. But this is where we're at. This is the dog training world's a total train wreck. And this video, yeah, of course and he's trying to of course the forestry side's gonna have a field day with this. Why wouldn't they? Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day.